The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clanged against the concrete driveway. I was lying under my beat-up Ford pickup at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, trying to fix a transmission leak that had been draining my wallet drop by drop. The November air bit through my work shirt, and my back ached from 8 hours at the factory, followed by this mechanical nightmare. That's when I heard Keena's voice cutting through the kitchen window like a rusty blade. "You always need boundaries and concerns, Jace. Maybe if you were a man, you wouldn't have to worry about losing me to someone who knows what he wants." I froze under the truck. The voice on the other end of her phone call was muffled, but I caught enough words to make my stomach twist. Tomorrow night, and can't wait, and something about a hotel room that made me want to punch something. My name is Jace Arnell, and I'm 38. I'm a foreman at Midwest Manufacturing, a struggling factory that produces parts for businesses that seem to be struggling too. I married above my station when I married Keena 15 years ago. She's a real estate agent with big ambitions, a flawless smile, and a talent for making me feel like I never quite measure up. I rolled out from under the truck and wiped my hands on an old rag. Through the lit kitchen window, I could see her pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing with her free hand like she was conducting an orchestra of complaints about her pathetic husband. "Dad, Mom's right about you." I turned around to find my 17-year-old daughter, Lila, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing that look of teenage disgust I'd grown accustomed to. "Excuse me?" Mom's tired of being invisible. Russ actually listens to her. He's real. She emphasized the last word like it was some kind of weapon designed specifically to wound me. Russ. There it was. The name I'd been hearing more and more lately. Russ McCabe, Keena's co-worker at Premier Realty, the guy with the expensive suits and the new BMW who always seemed to have brilliant insights about market trends and investment opportunities. "Lila, you don't understand I understand that Mom deserves better than someone who spends every night under a broken truck instead of talking to his family." She turned and walked back inside, leaving me standing in the driveway with oil-stained hands and a growing certainty that my world was about to collapse. I looked around our neighborhood. Barb Henderson's house across the street still had lights on. She was probably watching through her curtains, cataloging every detail of our domestic drama for tomorrow's gossip session at the grocery store. A stray dog was sniffing through overturned trash cans, and somewhere in the distance, a car alarm was wailing like a wounded animal. This used to be a decent neighborhood, working-class families who took care of their lawns and knew each other's names. Now half the houses had "for sale" signs, and the other half looked like they were giving up hope one broken window at a time. I went inside and found Keena in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with her phone in her lap. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment I saw something that might have been guilt flicker across her face. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" "Don't play games, Keena. How long have you been seeing Russ?" She stood up and smoothed her skirt. Even at midnight, she looked like she was ready for a business meeting. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I heard you on the phone. Tomorrow night, hotel room. Can't wait to see him." Her expression hardened. "You were listening to my private conversation?" "I was fixing the truck you've been complaining about for 6 months while you were planning your next date." "It's not a date, Jace. It's business. Russ and I are working on the Morrison account, and we need to meet with clients who are only available in the evening." "At a hotel." "It's a business dinner. The clients are staying at the Marriott downtown." She was good at this, smooth and confident, like she was closing a deal. But I'd been married to her for 15 years, and I knew when she was lying. Her left eye twitched just barely, and she touched her wedding ring with her thumb. "Show me your phone," I said. "Absolutely not. I don't have to prove anything to you." "You do, if you want this marriage to continue." She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "This marriage? Jace, look around. Look at yourself. You come home covered in grease, you eat dinner in front of the television, And the most interesting conversation you've had with me in the past year was about whether we should replace the water heater. I work hard to provide for this family. You work hard to avoid this family. When's the last time you asked me about my day? When's the last time you took me somewhere nice? When's the last time you acted like you actually wanted to be married to me? The questions hit harder than I expected because I couldn't answer them. I couldn't remember the last time we'd had a real conversation that wasn't about bills or schedules or Lila's school activities. That doesn't give you the right to cheat. I'm not cheating, I'm living. For the first time in years, I'm talking to someone who treats me like I matter. She walked past me toward the door, then stopped and turned back. I'm tired of your boundaries and concerns, Jace. Be a man. After she left the room, I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. Our wedding picture was hanging there, faded and slightly crooked. We looked so young and hopeful, like we actually believed we could make each other happy forever. I picked up Keena's laptop from the nightstand. She'd left it open, probably in her hurry to escape the conversation. Her email was still logged in, and I found what I was looking for in about 30 seconds. Hotel confirmation for tomorrow night. 2 rooms reserved under McCabe and Arnell. Dinner reservation for 2 at the hotel restaurant. A follow-up email from Russ with the subject line, "Can't wait to see you again." Again. I scrolled through more emails and found a trail going back 3 months. Business meetings that turned into dinners. Dinners that turned into drinks. Drinks that turned into late-night conversations about how unhappy she was at home. The most recent email was from yesterday. Keena, last night was incredible. I know this is complicated, but I think we both know where this is heading. You deserve so much better than what you have. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. Across the street, Barb Henderson's curtains twitched. She was definitely watching. Tomorrow, half the neighborhood would know that Jace Arnell was having marital problems. I went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator, looking for a drink that might help me think clearly. Behind the milk and leftover pizza, I found a bottle of wine I'd never seen before. Expensive stuff, not the kind Keena and I usually bought. The receipt was still taped to the bottle. For R, thanks for everything, K. That's when I made my decision. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. The wine bottle and receipt. The hotel confirmation on her laptop. The email trail between Keena and Russ. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the evidence, but I knew I'd need it. Then I did something that surprised me. I smiled. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I had some control over my life. Keena wanted me to be a man. Fine. She was about to find out exactly what kind of man I could be when I stopped playing by her rules. I spent the next hour going through our financial records, making lists of assets and debts, and researching divorce attorneys. By 3 a.m, I had a plan. The next day, I called in a personal day at the factory and drove to downtown. I found Russ McCabe's BMW in the parking garage under Premier Realty. Shiny black paint, leather interior, probably cost more than I made in 6 months. I walked around the car slowly, admiring the craftsmanship. Then I pulled out my keys and carved "Homewrecker" across the hood in letters deep enough to require a complete paint job. I let the air out of all 4 tires and left a note under the windshield wiper. Be a man, Russ. As I walked back to my truck, I felt lighter than I had in years. Keena wanted me to stop being passive. Done. She wanted me to take action. Consider it taken. I was almost home when my phone buzzed with a text from Barb Henderson. Jace, honey, I think you should know that Keena just got a very interesting phone call. She's packing a suitcase. When I got home, Keena was standing in our bedroom doorway with a suitcase in one hand and her phone in the other. Her face was flushed, and she was breathing hard like she'd been running. What did you do? She demanded. I fixed the truck. The transmission leak is gone. Don't play games with me, Jace. Russ just called. Someone vandalized his car. Someone who knows about us. Sounds like Russ has enemies. Maybe he should be more careful about whose wife he's sleeping with. She dropped the suitcase and stepped closer to me. You had no right. I had every right. I'm your husband. Not for much longer. Good. That makes this easier. I walked past her to the dresser and pulled out a manila folder I'd prepared that morning. Inside were copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. Emails, hotel receipts, credit card statements showing dinners and gifts I'd never heard about. What's that? Your insurance policy. See, Keena, you're right about one thing. I haven't been much of a husband lately, but I've been an excellent detective. I handed her the folder. She flipped through it, her face getting paler with each page. You went through my private things. I went through our shared computer and our joint credit card statements. Nothing private about spending my money on your boyfriend. Russ isn't my boyfriend. We're colleagues. Colleagues who share hotel rooms and exchange love letters? She closed the folder and threw it on the bed. Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Russ. Yes, I care about him. But this marriage was over long before he came along, and you know it. Maybe. But adultery is adultery, and I've got documentation. What do you want, Jace? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you need to make this quick and clean. I want you to understand something. You told me to be a man. So I'm going to start making decisions like a man. Starting with this. You're going to pack your things and leave. Tonight. This is my house, too. Actually, it's not. Check the deed. My name only. My credit bought this place before we got married, and I never added you to the title. That wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough. The house was in both our names, but I'd been making the payments from my account for 15 years. I was gambling that she didn't know the legal details. You can't just throw me out. I'm not throwing you out. I'm giving you a choice. You can stay here and work on our marriage, which means ending whatever you have with Russ and going to counseling. Or you can leave and be with him, but you can't have both. She stared at me for a long moment. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out her options. I need time to think. You've had 3 months to think. Time's up. That's when Lila appeared in the doorway. She'd obviously been listening from the hallway. Dad, you can't make Mom leave. This is her home too. Your mother made her choice when she decided to have an affair. Maybe she wouldn't have needed to if you'd been a better husband. The words stung because there was truth in them. I hadn't been a good husband. I'd been distant and distracted, and completely oblivious to what Keena needed from me. You're right, Lila. I wasn't a good husband. But that doesn't excuse what your mother did. Russ makes her happy. Why can't you just let her be happy? Because she's married to me. And if she wants to be with Russ, she needs to divorce me first. Keena picked up her suitcase. Fine, I'll stay at Simone's tonight. But this conversation isn't over. Simone Foster was Keena's best friend and business partner at Premier Realty. They'd known each other since college, and Simone had never liked me. She thought Keena had married beneath her station and wasn't shy about expressing that opinion. Tell Simone I said hello, I said. After Keena left, Lila and I stood in the bedroom looking at each other. She was crying, and I felt like the worst father in the world. I'm sorry you had to see that. Are you really going to divorce Mom? I don't know. That depends on what she decides to do about Russ. What if she chooses him? Then we'll figure out how to move forward. You and me. I don't want to choose sides. You don't have to. I'm your father no matter what happens between your mother and me. She nodded and went to her room. I heard her door close and the muffled sound of her talking on the phone, probably calling her friends to tell them her family was falling apart. I went to the kitchen and made myself a sandwich, then sat at the table and tried to figure out what to do next. The house felt different without Keena in it. Quieter, but also emptier. My phone rang. It was my buddy Tony from the MMA gym where I used to train. Hey man, I heard you might need a place to blow off some steam. You want to come in and hit some bags? Who told you that? Word gets around. Small town, you know? I looked out the window and saw Barb Henderson taking out her trash. She waved at me with a sympathetic smile that told me she'd already spread the news to half the neighborhood. Yeah, I'll be there in 20 minutes. The gym was in a strip mall between a pawn shop and a check-cashing place. It smelled like sweat and disinfectant, and the sound of gloves hitting heavy bags was like a heartbeat. I'd spent a lot of time here in my 20s, back when I thought I might make something of myself as a fighter. Coach Dom was in his 60s now, but he still moved like he could take apart guys half his age. He'd trained a few professional fighters over the years, and he had a way of seeing through people's problems that was almost supernatural. "You look like garbage," he said when I walked in. "Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear." "What's eating you?" I told him about Keena and Russ while I wrapped my hands. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally like he'd heard the story 1,000 times before. "So what are you going to do about it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to fight for her. Part of me wants to let her go." "What does your gut tell you?" "My gut tells me she checked out of this marriage a long time ago, and Russ is just her exit strategy." "Then why are you here punching bags instead of talking to a lawyer?" "Because I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of being alone. Of starting over at 38. Of admitting that I wasted 15 years on someone who didn't really want to be with me." Dom handed me a pair of gloves. "You know what your problem is, Jace? You're thinking like a victim. You're acting like this is something that happened to you instead of something you have control over." "What do you mean?" "I mean you're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself when you should be planning your next move. You want to fight for your marriage? Then fight. You want to move on? Then move. But stop standing in the middle of the ring waiting for someone else to throw the first punch." I spent the next hour working the heavy bag until my shoulders ached and my shirt was soaked with sweat. Every punch was a release, every combination a way of working through the anger and hurt and confusion that had been building up for months. When I was done, I felt clearer than I had since this whole mess started. I drove home and found a note from Lila on the kitchen table. "Dad, I'm staying at Madison's house tonight. I need some space to think about everything. I love you." The house was completely empty now. I walked through the rooms, looking at 15 years of accumulated memories. Wedding pictures, family vacations, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. All of it felt like evidence of a life that might have been a lie. I went to my computer and started researching divorce attorneys. I read reviews and fee schedules and success rates until my eyes burned. Then I made a list of questions to ask and scheduled consultations with 3 different lawyers for the following week. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Keena. "We need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow for lunch?" I typed back, "Only if Russ isn't invited. It's just me. Noon at Murphy's Diner." I agreed and went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Dom had said about taking control instead of waiting for someone else to make the first move. Keena wanted to talk? Fine, but she was going to discover that the man she'd been married to for 15 years was gone. In his place was someone who'd finally learned how to fight back. The next morning, I got up early and drove to Premier Realty. Russ's BMW was in the parking lot, still sporting my artwork and sitting on 4 flat tires. A tow truck was hooking it up while Russ stood nearby talking to a police officer. I parked across the street and watched. Russ looked exactly like I'd expected. Tall, good-looking, expensive suit, perfect hair. The kind of guy who'd never had to work with his hands or worry about making ends meet. He was gesturing angrily at his car while the cop took notes. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his body language suggested he was demanding justice for this terrible crime against his property. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of him standing next to the tow truck. Then I drove to Murphy's Diner to meet my wife. Murphy's Diner was the kind of place where the coffee was strong, the pie was homemade, and the waitresses called everyone honey. Keena was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She looked tired. Her makeup was perfect as always, but there were dark circles under her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept much at Simone's house. "Thank you for coming. she said as I slid into the seat across from her. I ordered you coffee. Black, no sugar. Thanks. We sat in silence for a moment while I tried to read her expression. She looked nervous, which was unusual for Kina. She was normally composed and confident, especially in confrontational situations. I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, she began. Which part? About having to choose between you and Russ. And? It's not that simple, Jace. This isn't just about an affair. This is about 15 years of growing apart. This is about two people who became strangers living in the same house. So you're choosing Russ. I'm choosing myself. For the first time in years, I'm doing what makes me happy instead of what's expected of me. The waitress brought my coffee and asked if we wanted to order food. We both declined. This wasn't that kind of conversation. What do you want from me, Kina? An apology? A promise to change? Permission to leave? I want you to understand that this isn't about you not being good enough. It's about us not being right for each other anymore. We could try counseling. Could we? When's the last time you really listened to me? When's the last time you asked me what I wanted or how I felt or what I dreamed about? She was right, and we both knew it. I'd been going through the motions of marriage for years without actually being present for it. I can change. Can you? Or would you just be trying to change because you don't want to lose what's familiar? Does it matter? If I'm willing to work on this, shouldn't that count for something? It would have counted for something 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, but not now. Not after I've seen what it feels like to be with someone who actually wants to be with me. Russ. Yes, Russ. He listens when I talk. He asks about my day and remembers what I tell him. He makes me feel like I'm interesting and attractive and worth spending time with. And I don't. You haven't in a very long time. I took a sip of coffee and looked out the window. A young couple was walking down the sidewalk holding hands, laughing about something. They looked the way Kina and I used to look. So what happens now? I want a divorce. I want to sell the house and split everything 50-50. I want joint custody of Lila, and I want us to try to do this without destroying each other. What about Russ? What about him? Are you planning to marry him? I don't know, maybe. That's not really your concern anymore. It is if he's going to be around my daughter. Russ cares about Lila. He's been nothing but kind to her. Lila is 17 years old. She doesn't need a stepfather. She needs her real father. She'll have her real father. This doesn't change that. I finished my coffee and signaled for the check. I need time to think about this. How much time? A week, maybe 2. Jace, I'm not going to change my mind. Dragging this out won't help anyone. Maybe not, but I'm not making any decisions while I'm angry. Fair enough. I paid the check and stood up to leave. One more thing, Kina. If we're doing this, we're doing it my way. That means no more sneaking around. If you want to be with Russ, be with him. But don't pretend this is about anything other than what it is. What is it? You trading up? Again. I left her sitting in the booth and drove to the factory. I had a shift to finish and some serious thinking to do. That afternoon, I called the first lawyer on my list. Her name was Patricia Vance, and her office was in a converted house near the courthouse. She was probably 50, with gray hair and sharp eyes that suggested she'd seen every kind of domestic disaster imaginable. "Tell me about your situation," she said, after I'd explained the basics. I handed her copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. She looked through it carefully, making notes on a legal pad. "This is good documentation, very thorough. How long have you suspected the affair?" "I confirmed it 3 days ago, but I think it's been going on for about 3 months. Any children?" "One daughter, 17. "Has your wife expressed interest in reconciliation?" "No. She wants a divorce." How do you feel about that? Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me is relieved. We haven't been happy for a long time. But I don't like being played for a fool. And I don't like the idea of her walking away from this marriage with half of everything I've worked for while she was cheating on me. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Michigan is a no-fault divorce state, which means adultery doesn't automatically affect property division. However, if you can prove she used marital assets to support the affair, that could be relevant. She did. Hotels, dinners, gifts. I have the credit card statements. That helps. What are your primary concerns? I want to keep the house. I want fair custody of my daughter. And I want to make sure Kina understands that actions have consequences. The first two are achievable. The third one is where you need to be careful. Revenge tactics often backfire in family court. I'm not talking about revenge. I'm talking about justice. Sometimes those are the same thing. Sometimes they're not. My job is to help you get what you're entitled to under the law, not to help you punish your wife for hurting you. I left Patricia's office with a retainer agreement and a list of documents she needed. I also left with a clearer understanding of what I was up against. That evening, Lila came home from her friend's house. She looked exhausted and older than 17. "How was your day?" I asked. "Terrible. Everyone at school is talking about you and Mom. Madison's mom heard it from Mrs. Henderson. I'm sorry about that. Are you really getting divorced? It looks that way. Because of Russ? Because your mother and I can't seem to make each other happy anymore. Do you hate her?" "No, sweetheart, I don't hate her. I'm disappointed and hurt, but I don't hate her." "Do you hate Russ?" "I don't know Russ well enough to hate him, but I don't like what he represents." "What does he represent?" "The end of our family, as we know it." Lila started crying. I put my arms around her and held her while she sobbed into my shoulder. "I'm scared, Dad." "I know. I'm scared too. What's going to happen to us? We're going to figure it out, one day at a time. I don't want you and Mom to hate each other." "We won't. We're going to try to do this the right way for your sake." "Promise?" "I promise." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was a promise I could keep. Because later that night, I got a call from Tony at the gym. "Hey man, you need to know something. Russ McCabe was here tonight asking questions about you." "What kind of questions?" "About your fighting background, about whether you were dangerous, about whether you had a history of violence." "What did you tell him?" "I told him to mind his own business. But Jace, the guy seemed scared, like he was trying to build a case against you or something." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and thought about what Tony had said. Russ was scared enough to investigate me. That meant my little car vandalism stunt had gotten his attention. Good. I wanted his attention. I pulled out my phone and sent him a text. "We should meet, man to man." He replied within minutes. "Stay away from me and my property." "Or what? You'll call the police? Tell them what? That the husband of the woman you're sleeping with wants to have a conversation?" "I'm warning you." "No, Russ, I'm warning you. Stay away from my family. Kina isn't your family anymore. She's still my wife, and Lila is still my daughter. Remember that." I turned off my phone and went to bed. Tomorrow, I was going to start playing by new rules. Kina wanted me to be a man. Russ wanted to steal my family. They were both about to discover exactly what kind of man I could be when I stopped playing defense and started playing to win. I woke up Saturday morning with a plan. Not a good plan necessarily, but a plan that felt like action instead of reaction. I was tired of being the victim in my own life story. First, I drove to the bank and opened a new checking account in my name only. Then I went to the factory and filled out paperwork to have my direct deposit switched to the new account. By Monday, Kina would lose access to my income. Next, I stopped by the cell phone store and removed Kina from our family plan. Her phone would be shut off by evening unless she set up her own account. Then I went home and changed the locks. I was installing the new deadbolt when Barb Henderson came walking across the street with a casserole dish in her hands. "Hi, Jace. I brought you some tuna noodle casserole. Figured you might need some home cooking." "Thanks, Barb. That's thoughtful. How are you holding up?" "I'm managing. I saw Keena's car here yesterday morning. She was loading boxes. She's staying at Simone's for a while." "And that man? The one with the fancy car? I saw him drive by twice yesterday. Slow, like he was looking for something." "Russ McCabe, Keena's co-worker. Is he the reason for all this trouble?" I finished tightening the screws on the new lock before answering. "He's part of it." "Well, for what it's worth, I always thought Keena didn't appreciate what she had." "You're a good man, Jace Arnell." "Thanks, Barb." She handed me the casserole and patted my arm. "You let me know if you need anything at all." After she left, I went inside and called Patricia Vance. "I changed the locks," I told her. "Jace, we talked about this. You can't just lock your wife out of the marital home. She left voluntarily. She's staying at her friend's house. That doesn't matter. She still has a legal right to access the property." "What if I'm concerned about my safety?" "Are you?" "Russ McCabe has been driving by the house. He was at my gym asking questions about me. I think he might be planning something." "Have you reported this to the police?" "Not yet." "Do that first. Document everything. Then call me back." I hung up and immediately called the non-emergency police number. 20 minutes later, Officer Martinez was sitting in my living room taking notes while I explained the situation. "So your wife is having an affair, and you're concerned that her boyfriend might become violent?" "I'm concerned that he's stalking me and my family." "Has he threatened you directly?" "Not in so many words." "Has he been on your property?" "He's been driving by repeatedly." "Driving on a public street isn't a crime, Mr. Arnell." "What about vandalizing my car?" "Did you see him vandalize your car?" "No, but..." "Then I can't help you with that either." Officer Martinez closed his notebook. "Here's my advice. If you see this man on your property, call us immediately. If he threatens you directly, call us immediately. But right now, you don't have enough for a restraining order or criminal charges." "So, I'm supposed to wait until he does something violent?" "You're supposed to document everything and let the legal system handle your divorce." After he left, I felt more frustrated than before. The system was designed to protect people like Russ and Keena, not people like me. That's when I decided to stop relying on the system. I spent the rest of the afternoon researching Russ McCabe online, social media profiles, professional history, property records, court documents. By evening, I had a complete picture of the man who was trying to steal my family. Russell James McCabe, age 35. Divorced 2 years ago. His ex-wife had filed a restraining order against him for harassment, though the charges were eventually dropped. He'd been fired from his previous real estate job for inappropriate conduct with clients. He had a DUI from 18 months ago and was currently on probation. This was the man Keena thought was an upgrade from me. I printed out everything I'd found and put it in a folder. Then I drove to Simone Foster's house. Simone lived in the expensive part of town, in a Tudor-style house with a circular driveway and professional landscaping. Keena's car was parked next to Simone's Mercedes. I rang the doorbell and waited. Simone answered, and her expression immediately turned hostile. "What do you want, Jace?" "I want to talk to my wife." "She doesn't want to talk to you." "That's her decision to make, not yours." "She's not here. Her car is in your driveway." "She went out with Russ. He picked her up." "Then I'll wait." "No, you won't. You'll leave or I'll call the police." I handed her the folder. "Give this to Keena. Tell her it's information about her new boyfriend that she might find interesting." "What is it? Public records? Court documents? Things Russ probably forgot to mention?" Simone took the folder but didn't open it. "You're pathetic, Jace. Can't you just let her be happy?" "I want her to be happy. I also want her to be safe." Russ would never hurt her. How do you know? How well do you really know him? Better than you do. Read the folder, Simone. Then tell me if you still think he's good for Kina. I left her standing in the doorway and drove home. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Kina. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she said without preamble. "I assume Simone gave you the folder. You had no right to investigate Russ. I had every right to investigate the man who's sleeping with my wife and spending time with my daughter. This is harassment. This is information, public information that you should have had before you decided to trust him. His past doesn't matter to me. The restraining order doesn't matter. The DUI doesn't matter. Getting fired for inappropriate conduct doesn't matter. People make mistakes, Jace. People change. Some people do. Others just get better at hiding who they really are. I'm not going to discuss this with you. Fine, but I want you to know that I've documented everything. If something happens to you or Lila because of Russ, it won't be because I didn't warn you. Nothing is going to happen to us. I hope you're right." She hung up, and I sat in my kitchen eating Barb's tuna casserole and planning my next move. Sunday morning, I drove to the gym and found Coach Dom working with a young fighter on footwork drills. "You look like a man with a plan," he said when I walked over. "I need advice." "Shoot. If you were fighting someone who had reach and speed advantages, how would you beat him?" "I'd take away his advantages, get inside his reach, disrupt his timing, make him fight my fight instead of his." "What if he was fighting dirty?" "Then I'd fight dirtier." "Even if it meant risking everything?" Dom stopped the drill and looked at me directly. "Jace, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to win." "Win what? Your wife back? The divorce? What?" "I'm planning to win my life back. I'm tired of letting other people make decisions for me." "That's good. But don't confuse winning with revenge. Revenge feels good in the moment, but it usually costs more than it's worth." "What if they started it?" "Then you finish it, but you finish it smart, not angry." I spent an hour working the heavy bag, thinking about what Dom had said. Finish it smart, not angry. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway I didn't recognize, a silver sedan with rental plates. I parked behind it and walked to the front door. Lila was sitting on the porch steps with a man I'd never seen before. He was probably 60, well-dressed, with the kind of confident bearing that suggested money and authority. "Dad, this is Mr. Foster, Simone's husband." I shook his hand. "What can I do for you, Mr. Foster?" "Call me Richard. I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About the situation between your wife and Russ McCabe, and about my wife's involvement in it." That got my attention. "What kind of involvement?" "The kind that's about to destroy my marriage the same way it's destroying yours." Richard Foster turned out to be a very interesting man. He was a retired executive who'd made his money in manufacturing, and he'd been married to Simone for 12 years. More importantly, he'd been investigating his wife's recent behavior and had discovered some things that changed everything. "Simone has been planning this for months," he told me as we sat in my living room. "The affair between Kina and Russ wasn't accidental. It was orchestrated." "What do you mean?" "I mean Simone introduced them. She encouraged the relationship. She provided alibis and cover stories. She's been actively working to break up your marriage." "Why would she do that?" "Because she blames you for something that happened years ago. Something about her getting fired from a job." I thought back, trying to remember. Midwest Manufacturing. She worked there about 5 years ago, in the office. "What happened?" "She was embezzling money, small amounts but over a long period. I caught her and reported it to management. She was fired, but they didn't press charges. She's never gotten over it. She's been waiting for a chance to get back at you." "So she destroyed my marriage?" "She used your marriage to destroy itself. She just gave it a push in the right direction." Richard handed me a flash drive. "Everything's on there. Emails, text messages, phone records. Simone documented the whole plan. because she wanted to savor her victory. Why are you giving this to me? Because I'm tired of being married to someone who gets pleasure from destroying other people's lives, and because you deserve to know the truth. After Richard left, I plugged the flash drive into my computer and spent 2 hours reading through Simone's communications. The scope of her manipulation was breathtaking. She'd researched Russ's background and identified him as the perfect weapon. She'd arranged for him to be assigned to projects with Kina. She'd planted seeds of doubt about our marriage during girls' nights out. She'd even coached Russ on what to say and do to win Kina over. The most damning email was from 3 weeks ago. Phase 1 complete. Kina is completely infatuated with Russ and ready to leave Jace. Phase 2. Make sure the divorce is as painful as possible for him. He destroyed my career, so I'm going to destroy his life. I printed everything and called Patricia Vance at home. You need to see this, I told her. Tonight. An hour later, she was sitting in my kitchen reading through Simone's emails. This changes everything, she said finally. How? If we can prove that your wife was manipulated into the affair, it affects both the divorce proceedings and potential criminal charges against Simone. What kind of criminal charges? Fraud, conspiracy, possibly extortion, depending on how deep this goes. What do I do? First, we document everything. Then we decide whether to pursue criminal charges or use this as leverage in the divorce. I want to confront them, all of them. That's the worst thing you could do right now. If you tip them off, they'll destroy evidence and claim you're harassing them. So I do nothing? You let me handle the legal aspects while you focus on protecting yourself and your daughter. What about Kina? She's being manipulated. Doesn't she deserve to know? She'll know soon enough. But right now, our priority is making sure you're in the strongest possible position when this all comes to light. Patricia left around midnight with copies of everything. I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about the past 5 years. How many times had Simone been in my house? How many family dinners had she attended while planning my destruction? How many conversations with Kina had she twisted to serve her agenda? I felt like I'd been living in a house of mirrors, never seeing the real picture until now. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging into things that don't concern you. I texted back, who is this? Someone who's tired of your games. Russ? Stay away from Kina, stay away from Simone, or you'll regret it. I screenshot the conversation and forwarded it to Patricia. Then I sent one more text. See you soon. Tomorrow, I was going to start phase 2 of my own plan. Simone wanted to destroy my life? Fine. But she was about to discover that when you come for someone's family, you better make sure you finish the job. Because I was just getting started. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the courthouse. I had an appointment with Detective Sarah Walsh, who specialized in white-collar crime. Patricia had arranged the meeting after reviewing Simone's communications. Detective Walsh was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with short dark hair and intense green eyes. She listened while I explained the situation, occasionally asking questions, but mostly just taking notes. This is elaborate, she said after I'd finished. Most affairs just happen. This was planned like a military operation. What can you do about it? Depends on how far we want to take it. The manipulation itself isn't necessarily criminal, but if money changed hands, if there was fraud involved in the business relationship, if Simone used her position at the realty company to facilitate this, then we might have something. What do you need from me? Access to all communications, financial records, anything that shows a pattern of deliberate manipulation for personal gain. I have most of that. Good. Give me a week to review everything. In the meantime, document any contact they make with you, but don't initiate contact with them. What if they escalate? Call me immediately. And Jace? Be careful. When people realize their schemes are falling apart, they sometimes do desperate things. I left the courthouse feeling like I finally had allies instead of just problems. For the first time since this started, I felt like I was playing offense instead of defense. That afternoon, I got a call from Lila's school. She'd been in a fight with another student and was suspended for the rest of the week. I found her sitting in the principal's office with a split lip and anger radiating from every inch of her 17-year-old frame. "What happened?" I asked as we walked to my truck. "Jessica Morrison was running her mouth about you and Mom, about how you're crazy and obsessive, and Mom had to leave because you were dangerous." "So you hit her?" I told her to shut up. She said Mom was smart to trade up to someone with money in class, so yeah, I hit her. "Lila, you can't solve problems by fighting." "Why not? It worked. She stopped talking. It also got you suspended." "I don't care. I'm tired of people talking about our family like we're some kind of entertainment." We drove home in silence. I was proud of her for defending our family, but worried about the anger I could see building in her. She was becoming collateral damage in a war she didn't understand. That evening, Keena called. "I heard about Lila's suspension. News travels fast. I want to see her. She's grounded and angry. Maybe give her some space. She's my daughter, Jace. I don't need your permission to see her." "Actually, since you moved out, you kind of do, at least until we work out a custody arrangement." "Don't play games with me." "I'm not playing games. I'm protecting our daughter from a situation that's spiraling out of control." "What situation?" "The situation where her mother's best friend has been manipulating our entire family for years as part of some twisted revenge scheme." Silence on the other end of the line. "What are you talking about?" she said finally. "I'm talking about Simone. I'm talking about how your affair with Russ wasn't accidental. I'm talking about how you've been played, Keena. You're paranoid. I have proof. Emails, text messages, a complete timeline of how Simone orchestrated this whole thing. I don't believe you. Then meet me tomorrow. Let me show you the evidence." "Why would Simone do something like that?" "Because I got her fired 5 years ago for embezzling money, and she's been planning her revenge ever since." Another long silence. "Even if that's true, it doesn't change anything between us." "Doesn't it? You told me you were leaving because you found someone who made you happy. What if that happiness was manufactured? What if your feelings for Russ were the result of manipulation?" "My feelings are real, Jace." "Maybe, but the circumstances that created them weren't. I need to think about this. Think fast, because I'm done being the victim in this story." She hung up, and I spent the evening helping Lila with homework and trying to pretend our lives weren't completely upside down. Tuesday morning, I got a call from Patricia. "We have a problem," she said. "What kind of problem?" "Keena filed for an emergency restraining order against you. She claims you've been harassing her and Russ, that you vandalized his car, and that you're becoming increasingly unstable." "That's ridiculous." "Maybe, but we have a hearing this afternoon. Can you be at my office at 2? I spent the morning gathering evidence to counter Keena's claims. Screenshots of Russ's threatening texts, documentation of my police report about his stalking behavior, witness statements from neighbors who'd seen him driving by the house repeatedly. The hearing was in a small courtroom with fluorescent lighting and the kind of institutional furniture that made everything feel temporary and hostile. Keena sat at a table with a lawyer I didn't recognize, while Russ sat in the gallery behind her. Judge Morrison was a woman in her 50s who looked like she'd heard every sob story and manipulation tactic imaginable. She listened while Keena's lawyer presented their case. I was obsessive, controlling, potentially violent. Then Patricia presented our evidence: the threatening texts from Russ, the police report, the documentation of Simone's manipulation scheme. "Your Honor," Patricia said, "this isn't a case of domestic harassment. This is a case of a man defending his family against a coordinated attack by people who have been manipulating his wife for months." Judge Morrison reviewed everything carefully. "Mr. Arnell, did you vandalize Mr. McCabe's vehicle?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Why?" "Because I discovered he was having an affair with my wife, and I was angry. That's not a legal justification for property damage." "No, Your Honor, it's not." Mrs. Arnell, do you have evidence that your husband has threatened you directly? Keena's lawyer whispered something to her. No, Your Honor. But his behavior has been erratic and frightening. Mr. McCabe, do you have evidence of direct threats from Mr. Arnell? Russ stood up. He sent me threatening text messages. What did they say? That I should stay away from his family. That's not a threat, Mr. McCabe. That's a warning, and given the circumstances, it seems reasonable. Judge Morrison closed the file. I'm denying the restraining order. However, Mr. Arnell, I'm ordering you to stay away from Mr. McCabe and to refrain from any further property damage. Mrs. Arnell, I suggest you focus on your divorce proceedings rather than trying to use the court system to manage your marital disputes. Outside the courthouse, Keena confronted me. This isn't over. You're right, it's not. But when it is over, you're going to understand exactly what Simone did to our family. Even if you're right about Simone, it doesn't change the fact that our marriage was broken. Maybe, but at least we could have tried to fix it without outside interference. I don't want to fix it, Jace. I want out. Then get out, but don't expect me to make it easy for you. That evening, I got a call from Detective Walsh. We've reviewed everything you provided. We're opening an investigation into Simone Foster's activities. What does that mean? It means we're going to interview everyone involved and see if there are grounds for criminal charges. How long will that take? A few weeks, maybe longer. These things move slowly. What should I do in the meantime? Live your life. Take care of your daughter. Let us handle the investigation. What about Keena? What about her? She's still being manipulated. She still doesn't understand what's happening. That's not your responsibility anymore, Jace. Your responsibility is to yourself and your daughter. Wednesday morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and loser spray-painted across the windshield. I called the police, filed a report, and had the truck towed to a repair shop. While I was waiting for a ride home, my phone rang. It was Richard Foster. Simone's gone, he said. What do you mean gone? I mean she packed her bags and left town, cleaned out our joint accounts and disappeared. When? Sometime last night. I woke up this morning and found a note saying she was starting over somewhere I'd never find her. Did you call the police? I called Detective Walsh. She's putting out alerts, but Simone has a 12-hour head start. What about Keena and Russ? That's why I'm calling you. Simone left another note. For them. What did it say? That the police were closing in, and they needed to be careful about what they said. That you were more dangerous than they realized, and they should consider leaving town too. She's trying to make me look like the threat. Even from a distance, she's still manipulating the situation. I hung up and called Patricia. Simone's gone, I told her. I know. Detective Walsh called me an hour ago. What does this mean for the investigation? It means we have a fugitive, which actually strengthens the case. Innocent people don't usually flee when police start asking questions. What about the divorce? That continues as planned. Simone's disappearance doesn't change the fact that your wife had an affair. But it might change how she feels about the affair. Maybe, but that's between you and her. That afternoon, Lila came home from her friend's house with news. Mom wants to see me tonight. Where? At the hotel where she's staying. What hotel? The Marriott downtown. She said she can't stay at Simone's anymore because Simone left town. Did she say why Simone left? Something about family problems. I drove Lila to the hotel and waited in the lobby while she went upstairs. An hour later, she came back down looking confused and upset. What's wrong? Mom was crying. She kept asking me questions about whether you'd ever been violent or threatening. She seemed scared. What did you tell her? I told her you were the gentlest man I knew, that you'd never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. Good girl. Dad, what's really happening? Mom seems like she doesn't know what to believe anymore. Your mother is starting to realize that some people she trusted weren't trustworthy. Simone? among others. Are you going to try to get back together? I don't know, sweetheart. That depends on whether your mother can accept the truth about what's been happening. Thursday morning, Keena called. I want to see the evidence you mentioned, about Simone. When? Today, this afternoon. Where? Neutral ground, Murphy's Diner. I'll be there at 2. I spent the morning preparing a presentation that would make the truth undeniable. Printed emails, highlighted timelines, financial records showing how Simone had benefited from manipulating our marriage through her business partnership with Keena. Murphy's Diner was nearly empty when I arrived. Keena was already there, sitting in the same booth where we'd met a week earlier. She looked exhausted and smaller somehow, like the confidence that had always defined her had been drained away. Thank you for coming, she said. I slid a thick folder across the table. Everything's in there. Read it all before you say anything. She spent 45 minutes going through the documents while I drank coffee and watched her face change from skepticism to shock to something that might have been grief. She really did this, she said finally. All of it. For 5 years, she's been planning this. The things she said about you, about our marriage. I thought she was just being a good friend, helping me see things clearly. She was poisoning your perception of reality. And Russ? Was he part of it? Read the emails between them. He knew exactly what he was doing. She flipped through more pages, her hands shaking slightly. The vacation we took last year, when Simone paid for the hotel room. She said it was a gift, but really she was setting up opportunities for Russ to spend time with me. She documented everything. She wanted to be able to prove she'd destroyed my life. Why didn't you show me this before? Would you have believed it? Probably not. You had to be ready to see it. We sat in silence for several minutes while she continued reading. What happens now? She asked. That depends on what you want to happen. I don't know what I want anymore. Everything I thought I knew about the past few months was a lie. Not everything. Your unhappiness was real. Our problems were real. Simone just exploited them. Do you think we can fix this? I don't know. Too much has happened. Too much trust has been broken. By me. By all of us. I wasn't a good husband. You had an affair. Simone manipulated us. Russ enabled it. There's plenty of blame to go around. I'm sorry, Jace, for all of it. I know you are. What do we do about Russ? What do you want to do about him? I need to end it. Completely. Are you sure? Your feelings for him were real, even if the circumstances weren't. My feelings were based on lies. He knew what Simone was doing, and he went along with it. He used me. Yes, he did. Will you help me? Help you how? Help me confront him. Help me make sure he understands that it's over. I looked at my wife across the table. She was asking me to help her end her affair. 6 months ago, I would have done anything to hear those words. Now, I wasn't sure what they meant or whether they changed anything fundamental between us. Okay, I said. Let's go talk to Russ. We found him at Premier Realty, sitting in his office reviewing contracts. When he saw us walk in together, his face went pale. Keena, what's going on? We need to talk, she said. About what? I handed him a copy of Simone's emails. About how long you've known that Simone was manipulating this situation. He flipped through the pages, his expression growing more desperate with each revelation. This isn't what it looks like, he said. It looks like you conspired with Simone to destroy my marriage, I said. I didn't know about her history with you. She just said Keena was unhappy and deserved better. And you believed that justified breaking up a family? I fell in love with her. You fell in love with the idea of her, the version Simone created for you. Keena stepped forward. It's over, Russ. Whatever we had, it's finished. Because of him? Because he's manipulating you now? Because you lied to me. Because you used me. Because everything between us was built on deception. That's not true. Then why didn't you tell me about your ex-wife's restraining order? Why didn't you tell me about getting fired from your last job? Why didn't you tell me about the DUI? Those things were in my past. Those things were your pattern, and Simone knew it when she picked you for this job. Russ looked at me. What do you want? Money? An apology? What? I want you to stay away from my family. Permanently. And if I don't? Then you'll discover that I'm much more creative than Simone ever was. He started to say something else, but Keena cut him off. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Just let it go. We left him sitting in his office, staring at the evidence of his own complicity in Simone's scheme. In the parking lot, Keena and I stood next to our cars without speaking for several minutes. What happens now? She asked finally. Now we figure out whether we can rebuild something from what's left. Do you want to try? I want to try, but I'm not sure I trust you anymore. I understand. And I'm not sure you trust yourself anymore. You're right about that. So maybe we start there. Maybe we both figure out who we really are when we're not being manipulated by other people. How do we do that? Separately, I think. At least for a while. She nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. I've made such a mess of everything. We both have, but maybe we can clean it up. Together? I don't know yet, but not apart, not the way Simone wanted. 3 weeks later, Detective Walsh called to tell me that Simone had been arrested in Phoenix. She was being extradited back to Michigan to face charges of fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Russ had been fired from Premier Realty and was reportedly looking for work in another state. Keena and I were in counseling, trying to figure out whether our marriage was worth saving or whether we should end it with dignity and mutual respect. Lila was back in school and seemed to be a